A woman of a certain age stands in front of the mirror, injecting herself with a special serum she heard about through advertisements. The serum, known mysteriously as the Substance, promises to create a younger version of yourself. Initially, she feels a wave of disappointment as nothing seems to happen. But then, suddenly, she feels faint and collapses, enduring an intense, strange pain. Her eyes take on an unusual appearance, and shockingly, her back splits open as if another person is growing inside her. Emerging from the older woman's body is a younger, more vibrant version of herself. She looks into the mirror, amazed at the reflection, a version that's not only younger, but more beautiful and fit than the lifeless form. Now lying on the floor, calmly she sits and stitches up her back as if she's sewing a piece of fabric. Next, she connects two special nutrient packs, one for her new self and one for her old self. Similar to setting up an IV, this nourishes both her current and former selves. However, after taking a shower, she notices a nosebleed. To manage this, there's another pack labeled Stabilizer. Every 7 days, she must swap back into her old body to produce the stabilizer, extract it, and inject it into her new self to keep the cycle going. Now transformed into her rejuvenated self, she has 7 days to enjoy her new, fit body and savor the vitality that comes with it. Let's rewind a bit and start from the beginning. Elizabeth Sparkle was once a legendary figure. Known for her dazzling dance moves, stunning physique, and modeling success, she had become an icon in her field. But on her birthday, after wrapping up a taping of one of her final TV shows, reality hits hard as she drives home and notices her billboards being taken down from the streets. It seems her time in the spotlight is ending. Distracted by this realization, she's involved in a car accident. Although the crash looks severe, the doctor assures her she's perfectly fine with no physical injuries. Yet, despite being physically unscathed, Elizabeth is emotionally shattered, constantly crying from depression and tormented by the fear of aging. During her hospital stay, a peculiar assistant notices her distress. After examining her back, he intriguingly suggests that she might be the perfect candidate for their experimental project. When Elizabeth leaves the hospital, she finds a strange, oversized flash drive in her coat pocket, wrapped in a piece of paper labeled The Substance, with a mysterious phone number on the back. The note reads, "This changed my life." Curious, she returns home and plugs the flash drive into her TV. A video plays, claiming that with this drug, you can create a younger version of yourself and swap places with them every 7 days. This intriguing turn of events sets Elizabeth on a path filled with promises of youth and transformation, challenging her to question just how far she is willing to go to reclaim her former glory. Struggling with the fear of aging, Elizabeth quickly calls the number on the back of the flash drive, eager to be selected as a test subject and receive the starter kit right at her doorstep. She's issued an electronic card with her test subject number, and using the address provided over the phone, she finds herself in a desolate part of town. Her card unlocks a hidden door leading to a peculiar place, a completely white room with a cabinet, filled only with numbers of other test subjects. She locates her own number, swipes the card, retrieves her package, and heads home. Eager to reclaim her youth, she opens the package, carefully reads the instructions, and administers the injection. No longer would she have to scan job ads looking for Elizabeth Sparkle replacements, targeting those aged 18 to 30. Feeling more vibrant than ever, Elizabeth is ready to audition in her rejuvenated form. Aiming to reclaim her dream job, she quickly wins over the judges and is introduced to the talent manager, who is looking to replace Elizabeth Sparkle. She introduces herself as Sue, explaining that she can only work every other week because she needs to care for her sick mother, a cover for the fact she has to manage time between her younger and older selves. The manager insists on having her work full-time, impressed by her potential. Weeks roll by, and she continues using the stabilizer, produced by her older self to maintain her transformation. Eventually, the week comes when the old Elizabeth resurfaces. After freshening up, she returns to work, only to find Harvey, her manager, handing over all her belongings and bidding her farewell, mockingly gifting her a cookbook for her free time. He's unaware that Sue is actually a younger version of Elizabeth. Elizabeth juggles her time between herself and Sue, frequently visiting the mysterious location to pick up essential nutrient packs necessary for maintaining her youthful form. When it's Sue's turn, she takes drastic measures by breaking the bathroom wall, creating a hidden compartment to store Elizabeth's body. Sue returns to the spotlight, dazzling everyone with her beauty, much to Harvey's delight, who is thrilled by how profitable Sue is. Later, Sue heads home, dresses up, and checks on Elizabeth, whose nutrients are running low, making an immediate swap necessary to maintain balance. However, Sue decides to enjoy herself a bit longer. She goes out with friends, then returns home with a guy, getting intimate. But during the encounter, she starts feeling unwell due to the imbalance, and Elizabeth's supply is completely depleted, putting her at risk. In a moment of selfishness, Sue extracts the stabilizer from Elizabeth's lifeless body but doesn't switch back, choosing instead to return to her boyfriend. The next day, Sue finally makes the switch back, but poor Elizabeth notices something shocking. One of her fingers has aged rapidly and looks terribly withered. Disturbed, she calls the company providing this experience, explaining how her other self's vanity disrupted the balance, causing damage to her finger. She asks if there's any way to fix it, but they tell her the only solution is to maintain balance between the two selves. Unfortunately, any damage is irreversible. While getting her next round of nutrient injections, Elizabeth decides to stop by a restaurant. There, she spots an elderly man with a familiar face, bearing a mark on his hand similar to hers. When he drops his belongings, she sees his card and suddenly remembers him as the young doctor who examined her back in the hospital. The old man talks to her, sharing how the experience makes you feel out of place after a while, leaving you alone and longing for it all to end. Overwhelmed, Elizabeth flees from the conversation. Back home, she searches through her things and finds the phone number of one of her fans. She calls and sets up a dinner date. Dressed up and ready to go, she catches a glimpse of Sue's billboard from her window. Comparing her own body to Sue's, she's overcome with insecurity and decides to cancel the date. In the next scene, it's Sue's turn, and she's in the studio filming a fitness routine. For a moment, she feels something odd on her hip, and even the film crew rewinds the footage several times but finds nothing unusual. Later, Sue goes to the bathroom and imagines pulling a piece of chicken from her belly button, realizing it was just a dream. She figures her overindulgence in junk food while being Elizabeth might have triggered such a bizarre nightmare. Back at work, she's shocked to find the studio closed. The crew informs her Harvey left a message in his office for her. She rushes to see him, and he excitedly reveals that she's set to be the honorary host for a New Year's Eve event. It's a big opportunity as people adore her, and it could skyrocket her fame. After receiving the news of her upcoming gig, Sue begins to exploit her situation, spending more nights in Elizabeth's attractive form, severely disrupting the balance. When Elizabeth finally wakes up, she finds one of her legs has become frail and aged. Her hair has turned white, and her face reflects the toll of time and neglect. Desperate, she calls the Substance company, explaining how her other self is exploiting her and wrecking the balance. They remind her that both of them are essentially the same person, and that maintaining balance is crucial. The company suggests stopping the process, but Elizabeth refuses and hangs up. Her legs are now so cumbersome and aged that she struggles even to walk, injuring herself while watching TV. Frustrated, she opens the cookbook Harvey gave her and, while watching an interview with Sue on TV, begins angrily cooking up greasy, meat-heavy dishes, muttering to herself about getting revenge on Sue. Sue eventually discovers Elizabeth's antics and vows not to let that witch back to work. She extracts all the nutrient contents from the syringes into small containers to avoid switching places with Elizabeth, further breaking the balance and ensuring Elizabeth's downfall. 3 months pass, and one night at home with her boyfriend, Sue realizes her last food reserve is depleted. She feels unwell, her nose begins to bleed, and she calls Substance for help. They insist the only solution is to switch back to produce the stabilizer. Reluctantly, she drags herself to the bathroom and finally performs the switch after 3 months. But when Elizabeth awakens, she's no longer herself. Her massive feet create a thundering noise, startling Sue's boyfriend awake in the bedroom. He rushes to the bathroom, but before he can see her, Elizabeth slams the door shut. Gazing in the mirror, she realizes her failure to maintain balance has turned her into a hunched, monstrous figure. In despair, she screams, her terrifying voice scaring off Sue's boyfriend, who was likely anticipating a night with Sue. Immediately, Elizabeth calls Substance, requesting to end the experience. The next morning, she receives the termination package at her doorstep. Hastily dressing and donning sunglasses to hide her horrific appearance, she returns to the usual location with Sue's body in tow. She prepares the termination syringe and injects it into Sue's body. Blood trickles from Sue's nose, and in a moment of hesitation, Elizabeth feels compassion, realizing Sue was supposed to host a live show that night. Conflicted, Elizabeth grapples with the reality of her choices and the consequences of the imbalance, torn between ending the cycle and allowing Sue to shine one last time. Determined to make things right, Elizabeth quickly prepares the switching equipment, connecting herself and Sue. Suddenly, Sue revives, coughing up blood onto Elizabeth. Seeing the termination syringe in Elizabeth's hand, Sue becomes enraged and attacks her. Elizabeth narrowly escapes Sue's grip, locking herself in the bathroom. However, Sue breaks down the door in her fury and assaults Elizabeth, repeatedly slamming her head against the mirror, turning the room crimson. As Elizabeth crawls away, barely alive, Sue delivers the final blow, kicking her until she's lifeless. Now, the balance is thoroughly disrupted. The termination syringe has been used, and Elizabeth, the original subject, is dead. The system's message has always been clear. Remember, you are one person, meaning Sue is now living on borrowed time, risking imminent death. Ignoring the potential consequences, Sue gazes at the billboard advertising her New Year's Eve TV show. She gets ready, applying makeup and putting on her outfit, but suddenly feels unwell and rushes to the restroom. She coughs violently, and to her horror, a tooth falls out. Realizing several teeth are now loose, Sue's smile becomes grotesque. Feeling awful, she understands her demise is near. She encounters Harvey in the hallway, maintaining her composure and smiling. Harvey introduces her to investors for future projects, but Sue quickly excuses herself. As she presses the elevator button, her fingernail detaches and her ear falls off. As if her body is rapidly disintegrating, Sue rushes home, grabs another package from Suspense, and administers the activation syringe, hoping it will fix everything. She waits impatiently for it to take effect. Instead, she collapses, and against her expectations, a terrifying, monstrous creature emerges from her body. Even with this grotesque form, she smooths her sparse hair, dresses up, and dons a mask of Elizabeth's face with only a picture of her. Ridiculously, she heads to the event, and no one seems to question her absurd appearance. As if they don't notice, she no longer resembles Sue. Finally, the moment arrives, and she takes the stage. But as she begins to speak, the mask slips, revealing her horrifying visage. Introducing herself as Elizabeth, chaos ensues and the crowd panics. Fleeing in terror, pushed and knocked down, someone even strikes her with a sword. Her body undergoes a sudden transformation, and bizarrely, the scene becomes comically gruesome as blood floods everywhere, as if her body contained an ocean of it. What should have been 5 liters turns into 500, soaking the surroundings. In her final moments, she stumbles onto the street, her body exploding into pieces. Only a fragment of her, bearing Elizabeth's face, remains and crawls towards her star on the Walk of Fame. In those last moments, she gazes at her name in glory before succumbing to her fate.